Welcome everyone to my live for Mental Iron. Now, as many of you probably know, today is Monday, September the 5th. It's Labor Day weekend, so happy Labor Day, everybody. So for those who don't know, I do a show with Dave Palumbo on RX Muscle called Iron Therapy, and we usually do, Dave and I do that show before I do this Mental Iron piece. Now, on holidays, Dave ends up spending time with his family as he should, so we don't do an episode. However, we did a pre-recorded episode with Antoine Valiant. I don't know if that's up yet. I meant to check before I went live. I didn't get a chance to, but if it's not up yet, and I think it is, but if it's not up yet, do check the RX Muscle channel or the RX website. It should be going up. If it's not already up today or already now, it will be up later today. So I'm gonna talk a little bit today about people who don't feel good enough. Now, just for people who are just joining me right now, feel free to ask me any questions in the chat. While the topic today is not feeling good enough, I want you guys to feel free to ask me questions, and it can be about anything. It doesn't even have to be about this topic. It's just that, just to give this for people who aren't able to join some kind of content. I want you guys to be able to look through these videos, whether you're doing your cardio or whatever, and get something out of it. So once again, welcome everyone to the chat. If you have any questions, just post it in the chat, and I'm happy to address those questions. Dave, aka Mark. Oh, I love it. Okay, finally the subscription notice worked. Hi, Lesley. Hey, I'm glad the subscription notice worked, Mark. So that's awesome. Now, by the way, are you at work right now? Are you borrowing your boss's computer? That cracks me up that you did that. Let me know. So yeah, so for those who don't know, like I said, we did an interview with Antoine, which was great. Antoine, if for people who don't know, is an IFBB pro bodybuilder. Such a nice guy, very grounded. He's gone through a lot of challenges over and over again, but he's persisted. And I don't know if you saw him, but he looked really, really amazing. His coach, Dorian Hamilton, is amazing too. Got him in such a great condition. And he's qualified to do the Olympia. So it'd be really cool to see him up on stage. Not work. Oh, right. You're not working today because it's a holiday. That's right. So you don't have to sneak with your boss's computer. That's awesome. Okay, good. I never want you to get fired. Okay. But so let's talk a little bit about, people who don't feel good enough. It doesn't feel good. All right. And keep in mind why people don't feel good enough. Sometimes it's our upbringing. We're told, from, let's say, our parents, depending on the type of household you grew up in, that no matter what you did, it wasn't good enough. So I'll give you an example. There can be, and this can vary from culture to culture too, but there can be some parents where you can bring home a 90 and that's not good enough. It's like, why did you make that mistake? And, and there's others that, they try their hardest, and they're not able to get the marks because they think differently. Keep in mind, what we are taught in school is a certain way of, they follow a certain kind of principle, but not everyone learns in that type of way. So if you don't know how to learn in that particular way that the school system teaches you, it won't be reflected in your marks. Now, that doesn't mean you're not smart. A lot of people are smart. There are people smarter that live from the school, they graduated from the school of hard knocks to basically life. And, whether they're entrepreneurs or they've really made it in the industry, they do fine because what they do are they're very observant. But I'm talking about people who absorb a lot about what other people tell them. And it almost becomes like an internal voice in our own heads to saying, let's say you had a very critical parent. And that voice might still be in your head. And you might adopt that voice saying, what, doesn't matter if someone gives me a compliment. You're always poking holes at that compliment as an example. And where does this come from? A lot of it has to do with not having enough self-confidence. Unfortunately, a lot of times, and I'm saying upbringing is one piece of it. It's not everything, but upbringing can be a powerful tool as far as establishing or whether or not someone has self-confidence. Because, there's different levels. I'm not trying to encourage parents right now who, I understand parents I'm a parent too, want to give your kids the world. That's great. But there's also this concept of self-entitlement. What I mean by that is that kids have gotten, and I'm not saying all kids, but a lot of kids nowadays, they expect certain things because their parents have, a lot of times as parents, we don't want our kids to have to suffer or go through kind of the trials and tribulations we did. We want to kind of save them that. But in saving them that process, they take things for granted. So I'll give you an example. I've got clients from different age groups, and one of them is, let's say, university students in their final year, and they expect that when they graduate, so they studied hard. They expect when they graduate, they're going to get offered jobs. Well, that would be nice, but you actually have to go chase your job. You actually, have to pursue various companies and be showing that, you're willing to work for it, not just that you show up, you punch in your clock, and then you just kind of twiddle your thumbs and hope the time goes really fast and collect your paycheck. That's not how it works, and sometimes, people who strive, there's different types of people who work really super hard, and maybe they don't get the marks, again, because they learn differently. It doesn't mean they're not intelligent. It's just they learn different ways. But they think that they're not good enough because it's not just upbringing, it's what does society tell us? If we don't do well academically, we have less opportunities in front of us. Now, I'm not saying school is a bad thing. I do think the educational system needs to be greatly updated. That's my own little rant for another day. But the problem is that a lot of times people don't feel good enough because society tells them you need to get, good marks to get into good schools. So they feel that, no matter how hard they try, they're not able to get those A's or whatever the overall average is that they need to be able to, let's say, whether it's a master's program or be able to apply to a particular job, because they're not good enough because they haven't raised the bar. Now, let me put school aside. Let's look at athletes. Athletes are a great example. We do the comparison thing. We can feel confident saying, hey, you know what? I put everything into my prep. So I'm not just talking about bodybuilding. I'm talking about any kind of sport, and say, I work really hard at this. I've practiced, I planned, whether it be diet and nutrition, extra kind of training for posing, or if you're in particular athletics, various skills that are particular to your sport, you can put in the work. The problem is that when you don't have a lot of confidence, our confidence, we tend to, not everyone, but we tend to associate whether or not we're successful with confidence. So if we do really well, we feel good. Okay, I'm not saying so, absolutely celebrate your successes, but what if you don't win, or what if you don't place the way you would like to? In a bodybuilding competition, if you're in a team sport, what if you didn't, let's say you just came under by like 1 or 2 points from the other team. Like, there's a lot of ways that people consider themselves failures, okay? And I put that in air quotes. Because if you don't win, it doesn't feel good. But does that necessarily mean you shouldn't have confidence? And I'll do a video on the difference, if I haven't already, on stable confidence versus, fragile confidence. So I'll make sure I'll especially post that one because that's really important. But not feeling good enough, when you don't have a lot of confidence in yourself, in your abilities, you see, here's the thing. Remember, no person is on their A game every single time. Name me one GOAT of any sport who's never messed up. Everyone's messed up. Who has had the perfect game? You can have the perfect game, but who has the perfect game every time? Zero, guys. Zero. So the person that's really good, they could be, when I say GOAT, I mean the greatest of all time. That's just the acronym. It does not mean that, okay, oh, hi, Raw. Nice to see you. How did I blow your mind, by the way? I see the little icon. Let me know what I said, and let me know if I offended you. So I don't want to offend you. But if I blew your mind by saying something intelligent, cool. Let me know what I actually said too. But when you're saying, when people say I don't feel good enough, it's because I didn't achieve a certain thing, or I don't look, let's say for bodybuilders, I don't look like, let's say, my competition on, let's say social media is a great example. Now, keep in mind, social media, I don't care what platform you're on. A lot of times people will compare themselves to Instagram, as an example. How many people do you know post on Instagram, post about the shitty stuff in their lives? Some people do. Some people do, and they're great inspirations. Antoine Valiant was one of them. He's great. I love him. But a lot of people don't. You see I call them highlight reels, meaning just the best of the best. They post, and I'm not saying people shouldn't be proud of their accomplishments. If, you look good, you place well on the show, sure, show that off. Absolutely, you should be proud of that. But then be careful when you're watching someone, or if you're following someone on social media, keep in mind that they're only posting a piece of their story or a piece of their life. Now, this is not to say that I also agree with people who post everything on social media. There are people, and I purposely don't follow them, that will literally post everything. And I don't mind knowing details, because sometimes people like to know what, let's say a particular person does throughout their life if they're more well-known, like a typical day, let's say in a bodybuilder's life. Okay, cool. I don't need to know what time you went pee. I don't need to know every single meal you necessarily ate. If people want to know about food prep, that's different. But sometimes people put too much of the minutia in posts. Let's say the relationships. Why would you put that stuff out in social media except to get attention? Don't think that's right. That's my personal take. I think that's kind of personal. Anything you share on social media, you have to be careful. But when you're comparing yourself with someone, this is what the confidence comes in. We do the comparison. Hey, I don't look that person or look like that person. Oh, they look like they're having fun all the time. I'm not having fun all the time. What does that say about me? This is where we get that not good enough, because we're comparing. But I'm saying if you're going to compare yourself, be aware that you're comparing yourself to a piece of that person's life. Because I'll tell you right now, there's going to be a piece of your life that maybe you have not posted. Now, I'm not saying you have to post, but that they might be jealous of. So it's just being aware of when you compare yourself, you're comparing yourself to the highlight reel of other people. And that's not a fair comparison. But that's part of where the not feeling good enough also comes from in. Oh, Dave, or Mart, thank you. Kevin, nice to see you. Yes, I'm doing well. Thank you. So we're just talking about not being good enough. But again, if you guys have questions regarding this topic or anything else, just feel free to put it in the chat and I'm happy to address it, okay? So when people say, well, how do I overcome this? It can come from different places, whether it's your parents, whether it's the upbringing, whether it's the social media, societal expectations. Okay, we get it. How do we deal with, overcoming this? First of all, look at the root. So what do I mean by the root? What's the root cause of your fear? If the fear is not feeling good enough, where is this fear rooted from? Rooted, meaning what's the base of it? So is this fear, is it based on reality, or is it on your perception of reality? There's the two different things. So is it because here's the thing, I don't think, sometimes we're not honest with ourselves. We think we are, but we're not, because it's not balanced. How many bodybuilders do you know that look in the mirror and they say they look like shit? They don't look like shit, but maybe there's certain body parts they want to bring up. That's a little different. But a lot of it, when it comes from, when you look at the root cause of it, a lot of it is, not all of it, a lot of it is rooted in social media, because we're doing the comparison thing. I tell people, avoid the comparison. I'm not saying you can't follow people on social media. I'm saying take it with a grain of salt. It's when look at the news. There's a great example. Do you believe everything in the news? Depends on, and look at the various news channels. They take different angles. Okay. Without being overly political, consider the source and keep an open mind. That's what I'm encouraging you to do. But when you look at the root cause, like I said, is the root cause based on your comparisons with other people? Is it biased? Are you being more open-minded about how you're processing this information? If it's based on reality, what kind of reality? Are you taking a piece of reality, or are you looking at the whole piece of the whole spectrum? Because a lot of times we get focused in on something negative. I'll give you an example. Someone will do a post. I have clients that can be They may not necessarily be bodybuilders. They could be fitness influencers or social media influencers. And they'll say, Lesley, when I post, a lot of people say positive things, and that's great. But I'll get like a couple of these people who say negative things. And I don't focus. My clients tell me I don't focus on the positives. They're nice, but I always zero in on the negative, even if it's only, let's say, 2 or 3. And I'm saying, okay, well, let's look at what's negative. Keep in mind why you're doing the pattern of behavior you are. Is it because you're trying to improve yourself as far as your social media presence, or you want to be open to feedback so you can give out maybe whether it's better material? Maybe some people are trying to say, and keep in mind, not everyone is great with language. Are they being trolls? So for people who don't know what an internet troll is, by the way, check out my my videos. I did a separate video on dealing with internet trolls. Definitely check that video out. But trolls are people who don't, they're not trying to be constructive. All they want to do is get involved in a debate. They just want to fight for the sake of fighting. So what do? They want to poke the bear. So they just want to poke, verbal poke you. And a lot of it's inferencing something that you may have said and go on a completely different tangent. It's not that they believe this stuff. They just want to get a rise out of you. Let me give you an example. I don't know how many of you guys have siblings. When you grew up, did your sibling ever say or do something, and it didn't have to be truth, but they just knew what button to push, and it would just set you off, and then you just want to punch them? That's kind of like an internet troll, okay? It's not based on fact. They just want a reaction. That's all. So is what you're focusing on when you're doing a post and you're looking at the feedback, is it based, again, look at the source, is it an internet troll? Don't bother wasting your time interacting with them. I'm talking about people who might be giving you, saying, hey, I disagree with you. Hear their points. We don't have to agree. You see, I want people, at least on my channel, I can't speak for other people, but if someone disagrees with me, I don't mind. I'm not going to take it personally. Everyone has a right to their opinion. Just back it up. Let's have an intelligent conversation about it. Maybe you'll sway my mind. Who knows? Maybe I'll sway your mind. Who knows? The idea is I want us to have mature conversations and feel safe that we can have disagreements. And that's okay. Because, whether you're Canadian, whether you're American, it doesn't matter, or wherever you are in the world, we should be able to have conversations about any topic. People should be able to express themselves. We may not agree. That's okay. But we should be able to express them. None of this banning shit. I understand. It's up to you guys if you want to go down that road with sorry. What's his first name? David, or shoot, what's his name? He was all over. He was banned like from every social media. We can talk about that if you want. But there's something called freedom of speech. You don't have to like it, but people should be able to say what they need to say, as long as they're trying to be constructive. Now, sometimes it can be very insulting. You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree. But to say you hate somebody because you disagree with them, hate is a very strong word, okay? I use hate in words like, I hate COVID. I can say that. I hate how the government handled it. I can say that. But hate is a very, very strong word. Just because you disagree with someone doesn't necessarily necessitate hate. You can say you dislike. I think that's fine. But I want to go back to, I don't know how I got on that tangent. Sorry, guys. About that not feeling good enough. Like I said, take things with a grain of salt. When people are giving you feedback, now everyone is able to give what we call constructive feedback. Constructive feedback is saying, hey, I see your point about this, but I disagree about this, this, and this. That's more constructive. Okay, well, is there any truth to that? Hear what they have to say. Maybe you can learn from something. Maybe they're helping you to improve your channel, but maybe they don't have the words to express it. So see through the initial words. It's hard not to take it personally, and see what the message is. Like I said, not everyone's able to communicate that properly. but you can say, is there any grain of truth in it? If they say you're a hater of X, and you know that maybe you've given constructive criticism, but you know it wasn't hatred, hear what they have to say. Again, people aren't necessarily great with words. See through the exact words and see the message and dive into that a little bit more. And at the end of the day, even if they think you hate a person or a bodybuilder, because I see this all the time on the podcast, is that they'll say, oh, you said something negative about this bodybuilder. That means you don't like this bodybuilder. No. A lot of these bodybuilding podcasts are people who are critiquing, let's say for the upcoming shows, or who they think there's going to be in the top 5. It doesn't mean that they think the people who are not in the top 5 are not good bodybuilders. What they're saying is, based on what they're been presenting on social media, which we all know is not necessarily how they'll show up on show day. Although I'll say right now, Rami is looking killer abs. I never thought I'd see Rami in this condition this far out. Looks amazing. If someone wants to see, Dave Palumbo posted a picture recently on Under RX Muscle on Instagram of Rami. He looks bananas. So it's going to be really interesting. The toughest part for Rami is, can he hold it? Can he hold that conditioning? He's going to he has to dial in a little bit more. He's got lots of time. And then stress. He needs to be able to manage his stress. So hopefully he's going to be continually to work with Dennis, who's really good about trying to keep him on track, to keep the lines of communication open. And we'll see. Because honestly, anyone who's going to be competing at the Olympia, it's not going to be a walk in the park by any stretch. But as far as going back to the constructive feedback piece, when people are giving that kind of feedback about a certain bodybuilder, it doesn't mean they don't respect them. They're just saying, hey, they might need to bring this up to be more competitive. It doesn't mean that they dislike them, because if you really listen to a lot of these bodybuilders, when they do these podcasts, they have such tremendous respect for everybody because they know how hard it is. A lot of these people have competed at some point in time before they became podcasters. So they know how hard it is and they respect the guys. You can respect someone and say, hey, they need to bring this body part up. That's okay. But if you don't have proper confidence and you're watching it and you're saying, hey, they didn't put me in the top 5, I'm going to take that personally. Whoa. Doesn't mean they're not cheering for you. But it can be discouraging. So for people who are watching, I'm just under 4 weeks out from a show. I know the number it can do on your mental game. But because of my strategies, I can put a lot of this in check. A lot of bodybuilders have not been trained mentally the way I've been trained. Because I train, I have clients, this is what I do. This is one of the hats I wear. Mental game coaching for athletes. So I know a good mental game, but a lot of people don't have that mental game. They take it personally. And I'm like, stay off social media, please. If you need to post something for, let's say, your sponsor, show the pictures or the information to a friend, have them post it so you don't get tempted to look on the feed of what's going on. Okay. So let me see if there's any kind of questions so far. The Al Show. Hi, Al. Comparing yourself to a piece of a person's life, that's spot on when it comes to social. Thank you. Natty Gaines. Nice to see you. Yeah. Thank you, Natty. I appreciate you joining me. Lee Price. Okay, you can never change someone's mind if you're not willing to hear what they. Agreed. Sometimes, when that's a good point, Lee, because we want to think that we're open to feedback, but it's also timing. And when you're talking about people, especially, I know I talk a lot about bodybuilders. It's not just bodybuilders, but the closer you get to a competition, stress can get higher. Now, stress. Believe it or not, stress is not necessarily a bad thing. I know we associate it with something negative. When we say, oh, I'm so stressed out, that's not usually a good thing. But stress, you can have good stress. I'll give you an example. Good stress could be, non-sports related would be before going on a roller coaster. It's excitement, but you're just like, I don't know if you guys are like that on roller coasters. But if you go back to a sport, it's the anticipation. And it's like, yeah, you're feeling anxious, but it's an excitement. I can't wait to get on stage kind of thing. Like I'm doing the amateur Olympia. That's not a small stage. So am I a little nervous? Sure. Am I excited? Damn right I am. So, it's okay to have some nervous butterflies, like I tell people, but it's learning how to help your butterflies fly in formation. But when you're under that kind of mindset, and there's a lot hanging on because you're going to be competing at the toughest show in the world, the Olympia, guess what? You might end up being more sensitive in reaction to things. So as much as we want to be open to feedback as a competitor in any sport, sometimes we're a bit more sensitive to that feedback. So sometimes it's kind of like we only want to hear it from our coach, as an example, or some very, very trusted individuals. Even though other people, let's say if you do a post, they might mean well. And again, it's coming from a good place, but sometimes we can't hear it in a proper place. So it's knowing yourself well enough, or where you're at in the process, to saying, pull yourself out of social media, please. If you're in that place, that headspace, there are things that you can do. I can suggest for people who want to work with me other strategies, but first and foremost, get off of social media. If you have to post, whether it be progress pictures, or letting your fans know where you're at, get someone else to post on your behalf. All right. So when you ban speech, you lose out finding out who someone is and what they stand for, regardless if you agree or believe what they do. Yeah. So Mark, you're right. The thing is that, we don't always have to agree, and it's not being disrespectful if you disagree. There are certain things that you can agree with and certain things that you disagree with. Again, it's just about encouraging different kinds of conversations, because what we came into a society, and I don't know if you guys experience this, but it feels like, and I don't want to use this too much, but the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers, it's almost like enemies. If you're not on one camp, then the enemy, like the other camp, is the enemy. Like, so for people, I know people who've got the vaccinations. I had to get vaccinated. I was Canadian and I wanted to compete, so I did it. For those who didn't get the shots, I respect that. But, there are people who are vaccinated. So the people who are not or against vaccination see people who are vaccinated as the enemy. Or let's look at political parties as an example. Let's get off the C word. Political parties, liberal, Republican, of course, it's independent. Like, there's different parties. But if you're not on one side, that means the other side's the enemy. Is it? Is it necessarily the enemy? Do we have to be enemies? Like, that's really, really, extreme to say they're the enemy. You can say, I disagree with their policies. I can say, hey, you know what, their follow through hasn't been very consistent, or, how they dealt with certain kinds of situations. I don't like how they dealt with that kind of situation, or what they stand for. I'm not a big proponent of that. Okay. Again, I'm not saying people can't disagree, but do we have to see people who look at gun control? Okay. I'm Canadian, so it's a little different in Canada than it is in the US. And obviously, depending on where you're in the US, as far as how much freedom you have. Now, I do believe that people should have mental health checks for sure, as well as some other things that are put into place. But, here's the thing, guys. For people who don't believe that people should own, anyone should own a gun, and that we should leave it all to the police. And by the way, kudos to the police for everything they do, honestly. Anyone in the law enforcement. I know they're not all clean. I know it's not perfect, but there's a lot of good people out there trying to save lives and trying to do the right thing, which is our law enforcement. So, and no, I don't believe in defunding the police. No. So, but for people who do think that the police should be defunded, do I think they're the enemy? No, I just strongly disagree with it. There's a difference. So I wish we can get out of the mentality that people who don't agree with us are our enemies. They're not our enemies. We just disagree, So I don't know if you guys feel the same, but certainly feel free to post your comments about that. But yeah, I just think that, we should be able to have some more healthy discussions, even if we don't agree. And again, this enemy thing, I don't like this, if we disagree, we're enemies. Peace. Kevin, I did think Rami also, but I agree with Chris Aceta a few weeks ago. Nick Walker. Yeah, I saw Nick. I saw some pictures recently of Nick. As far as, okay, because here's the thing. Generally speaking, especially at the Olympia, they go for size. And Rami definitely has the size. He's actually looking like he's bringing the conditioning. See his waist. Now, Nick Walker has a small waist, but because of the ratio And I need a side by side. So, Kevin, let me know your thoughts on this, because I didn't have a side by side. I looked at these pictures separately, the Rami and the Nick Walker. The shoulder width of Rami. Now, Nick is definitely huge, no question. The amount, I don't even know how much muscle Nick has put on. It's phenomenal. But when I look at Nick, he reminds me kind of the Hulk. Really strong, but he's got a smaller waist, and he's really worked hard on that waist. But because of the absolute width, and I don't know what the actual measurements would be, but my guess, and this is just on pictures, guys, that the shoulder width for Rami is larger, okay, than Nick. It's not that Nick is small, he's not, but because Rami's got these, and he's got his flaring lats, because he's brought his stomach in, he's got more of that V taper, which is really, really impressive. Now, do I think that Nick can bring any V taper? I do think so. But how much of a V taper, I'm not sure. So if we get, I think they're going to be doing a lot more comparisons this Olympia. I'm really excited to see it. So it's going to be, and obviously Hadi is no small guy either, and he brings wicked conditioning, absolutely wicked conditioning. And again, if you guys want to disagree with me, I don't hate you. Feel free to post in the chat. I'm happy to have this conversation. Brandon, he's bringing up his legs. So we'll see. And he's got a nice shape. See, here's the thing. When you've got everyone, let's assume everyone's on. Now here's the thing. The caveat is that all these guys are going to be working their asses off. They all want to win. But who's going to be able to bring it on show day? It's not that they don't want to. Trust me, it's not that they don't want to. But stuff can happen. Whether there's a bit of spilling over, whether it's, there's so much that can happen, guys. It's not, they try to get everyone in shape and conditioned. But if you've got size, and then, even with conditioning versus shape, with size and conditioning, which one will the judges go with? Depends. Because I'll tell you right now, let's say, I don't know how Andrew Jack will do. Do I think he's going to win the Olympia? No, not this year. One day, maybe, because he's new. He's really new, and he's got a wicked structure. I can't wait to see Quinton. Honestly, Quinton. I predict Quinton's going to be a Mr. Olympia one day. This year, no. Not next year. He's got to put on more mass, but his shape is so pretty. I know it's funny me saying pretty for a guy. It's a nice shape, and he's bubbly. He needs to work on some density. But you know what? I train at the same gym as Quinton. I see him. And he's such a nice guy, by the way. And Antoine is at that gym as well, and he's a nice guy. There's no nice Canadians, actually. I'm very lucky to train at that gym. But, as far as, I want to hear what you guys think. If we just put it down to, let's say, Rami and Nick Walker, two amazing, and they're built. Who do you think is who would win between those two? Now, it's hard to predict because we still have 15, 16 weeks before the Olympia. I can't remember now. So there's still lots of time. If Rami is able to hold his shape and just come in tighter, those deeper lines, he's got mature muscle mass. Nick is more newer. He's not brand new, but he's newer. I don't know how deep his muscle can cut in. Will he come in shredded? Yeah. That boy's disciplined. And will he bring his stomach in? Yes. But again, when you get someone like Shape, I don't know. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Hey, Alaric. Happy holiday to you too. So yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on who you think. Say, Kevin, who do you think, by the way? I think you brought it up, right? With Rami and Nick. But I agree with Chris Aceto a few weeks ago, Nick Walker. Yeah. So Nick is looking good. You see, I don't know when Chris, I think I remember seeing Chris say that actually. When Chris said that, had he seen a recent picture of Nick Walker? I don't know. Because Nick has a good mindset. It's very singular focused. Who knows? I don't know. It's hard to predict. It's anyone's game, honestly. That's what makes this really exciting. It's anyone's game. And you know what? I'm rooting for all these guys. Not everyone's going to come in shape. Again, not because they don't want to, because too much stuff can happen between now and then, barring injuries and everything else. So, it's really important to be able to, cheer these guys on, because they do try so friggin' hard, and it is a process, and you don't know how you're going to look until that day. You can plan it. You can say, hey, what worked for me last time? But I'll tell you, from also personal experience, as well as other people have told me, if you find that you did really well at a show and you documented everything that you did and you repeated that exact same pattern, such as whether you did your carb up, how you did your carb up, your water, salt, whatever you end up doing, you repeat it, you're not going to get the same result. I'm telling you right now, because our bodies change, they adapt. So there's a bit of a guessing game. There's education, of course, and experience, but there's a bit of a guessing game, and you never know. Because that's why you'll see guys in the morning show, and they might look phenomenal in the morning show. And all of a sudden in the evening, they look a little soft. They look a little bit watery. It's not that they gained fat. It's just that their body's retaining water. Maybe they spilled over because they just had a little bit too much carbs. And why would you take that chance? Because sometimes that carb, there's a fine line between the spilling over and looking fuller. And if you can look fuller, obviously bigger muscle bellies, that's what you want. So it's such a fine line. It's not easy. Or you'll see the vice versa. You'll see the guys that might look a little bit watery in the morning, they're able to dial it out between the morning show and the evening show, and they're tight and they look awesome in the evening. So a lot can happen. A lot can happen. So I can't wait to see it. But if you guys have certain thoughts on, who you think between, let's say, Rami, because again, these two guys have size, Rami and Nick Walker, and they both want to win. They have both, they've got it in their eye. So, well, they all have it in their eye. And then Bonac. Bonac's been consistent. He's like, he's got dense muscle. Like, it'll be interesting. Again, it'll be really, really interesting to see who comes out. So again, post any kind of questions that you have for me in the chat, whether it's about the Olympia, it's about anything we've talked about so far, something we haven't talked about so far. But I'll just kind of keep yammering on unless someone put something in the chat. So going back to what can you do? When you're starting to wonder if you're good enough, one was finding the root, the cause of the not feeling that you're good enough. Another is focusing on past successes. Because here's the thing, we're really good at being our worst enemy. I don't know if you noticed that. So sometimes we have to remember some of the things that we did well. And because we like to dismiss it to saying, oh, you know what, that didn't happen often. I've kind of fucked up more, excuse my language. I've kind of messed up more than I've actually done really well in my life. Okay, well, why does that mean that those successes didn't count? Of course they counted. They count for something, because in your mind, it might not be a big deal. I put that in air quotes, a big deal. But you were able to accomplish those things when other people couldn't. So celebrate your successes. Give yourself a pat on the back. It's okay. It doesn't mean you're arrogant. Be proud when you achieve something. Because when you focus on your past successes, what's happening is that when we have a success, it's not because it was easy. It's because there was a challenge that was presented to us and we overcame that challenge somehow. So when you go back in time and you think, well, how did I get past that? Remind yourself, how did I overcome those obstacles? What did I do? What strategies did I put in place? What was going on in my life and what did I do to change it? And visualize. You may have heard that concept before. Visualize being successful. Visualizing, a successful outcome over and over again. That's important too. So if you're going to have to be your worst enemy, I want you to be your best cheerleader too. Another is, what about your current successes, even if they're small ones? I tell people all the time that success doesn't have to be winning a show. Success could be going a full day. Let's say you've been eating off plan. It could be something small. Let's say you've been eating off plan for a long time. Can you go one day with eating clean, planning it, know exactly what you're going to eat, and stick to that plan for one day? And you might be like, you know what, Lesley, I did it for 2 meals and that's it. I couldn't get through all my meals and do it. Guess what? You just got 2 meals in that you didn't get yesterday done. Celebrate that. Now let's beat it. Can you do 3 or more the next day? Work on gradual steps, but celebrate the successes rather than say, oh, it wasn't good enough because I only did 2 meals and I was supposed to do a full day. Like I said, guys, be your best friend for a change. But doesn't mean you can't up your game. What I'm saying is don't dismiss it. There's a difference. Another is sometimes we're so afraid of something. Let me tell you, I know it's because for a whole bunch of reasons, I don't like wearing a bathing suit. Okay. What do? I'm a bodybuilder. Do you have any idea how small those damn suits are? So not only am I wearing a bikini on stage, being judged for my appearance. So what kind of female in their right mind does that? So I'm getting scored on my appearance and all my imbalances. Yes, doesn't that sound healthy? So I'm not a big fan of showing my body off to other people. So I do it anyway. I like to combat my fear to say, you know what? If I want to be able to do this for me, to know I can overcome my fear, and maybe I can inspire others. I started competing at the age of 45. Most people retire by then because they start a lot earlier. I want to inspire people if they haven't competed yet, that they could still entertain that idea if they want it. I'm not saying you have to, but if they want it, it's doable. Now, would you get to the pro level? Maybe not. So we can manage expectations that way. But could you get in the best shape of your life after 45? Sure, you can. Now, if you've been starting your bodybuilding or fitness career or some type of sport, and you may have had injuries, things need to be altered a little bit. But it's focusing on what you can do, not focusing on what you can't do. And again, a lot of this has to do with mindset. When we're talking about being not good enough, it's what we tell ourselves up here. It's not physical capabilities, even if we have an injury. It's about what we tell ourselves up here. So not feeling good enough is self-talk. And that was going to be my next point, is avoid the negative self-talk or learning how to talk back to it. So if you find that sometimes you say things to yourself, such as, oh, crap, I'm such a shitty person, or I look horrible today. Are you really a shitty person? Let's look at that. No, it doesn't mean you're a shitty person. Now, if you're saying I have an off day, or let's say I'm not having a good hair day, okay, it doesn't mean you're a shitty person. And if you don't have a bad hair day, or if you're having a bad hair day and that's the worst thing that happens in your day, it's a pretty good day, if you ask me. But the negative, here's the thing. We are so used to talking to ourselves in some type of negative fashion. What about trying to talk to yourself in a positive way? Saying, you know what, didn't get that done, but I'm really happy got this done. What's wrong with that? I'm not saying throw a party. I'm just saying at least acknowledge what you've done. Just don't focus on what you haven't done. Focus on what you did do. Again, we don't know how to become our best friend, and part of it has to do with the messages we tell ourselves. Also, another strategy is knowing a secret. Let me tell you a secret when it comes to not feeling good enough. You're not the only one. This is not directed to you personally. Everybody at some point in time doesn't feel good enough. Everybody. Now, that doesn't mean you have to necessarily continue to feel that way. It's learning how to overcome it. It's just that it's not something that God, the universe, whatever you believe in, just picked on you and you alone. No. Everyone goes through hardships for sure, in different ways for sure. But everyone goes through hardships. Again, it's learning how to process it differently. And here's the thing. Thinking that we're not good enough is actually, think of it like if you ever worked in a factory. I used to work in a factory. There are these default settings. standard settings, and then you just adjust them to make them more personalized or fix them up. Our default setting in our brain is we're not good enough. So our job is to personalize this into something more powerful, something more empowering, and being kinder to ourselves. Now, you're not going to always stop the negative self-talk, but you can be aware of when you do it. And I tell people, picture the stop sign. And now what would you tell yourself? And you might be saying, well, I don't know what to tell myself, Lesley. Okay. What if, let's say one of your friends say, I'm not good enough. What would you tell them? You probably tell them, well, of course you're good enough. What are you talking about? Because you do this, this, and this. Because you're backing it up. This is the kind of talk I want you to have with yourself. Back it up with, let's say, even if there's small achievements, past successes, saying, you know what? Maybe you're not where you want to be in life, but you're trying. You know, you're trying. Maybe you need to work with someone to hammer out some strategies and keep you accountable, because we can have goals, and it's great to set a goal. But if you're not consistent, how good is that goal? Now, when I say consistent, I don't mean perfection. No one's perfect. Everyone messes up. The problem isn't being afraid of messing up. The problem is not learning from the mess ups. I want you to see mistakes as opportunities. And I know this sounds really weird, but actually failure, and I did video on this, failure is a great lesson because it's an opportunity to learn and grow. Think of it like a flower. If you want a flower or a plant to grow, yes, we put water and we get sunlight. But if you really want it to be nourished, what do? Fertilizer. Do you know what fertilizer is? It's shit. That's what we need. We need shit in our lives sometimes for us to grow. Because we're stubborn. I admit it, I'm stubborn, but I want to use that to work for me rather than against me. So stubborn working against me is I don't want to change because I'm set in my ways. Stubborn making it work for me is this is the little push I need because I don't want to continue living this kind of life or this kind of headspace. I want to be a better person. I want to do more with my life. I want to contribute more. You know, it's like I said, it's so much of it. This is a mindset, but we're not taught this. So this is the little rant I was talking to you about wanting to change our educational system. I understand, you know, if you want to learn geography, Google it. How about teach even from kids, conflict resolution skills. Basically, all that means is how to fight fair. Where do we learn how to fight fair? It's not with our siblings, not with our parents, typically, not on the school bus, not at recess, not with their siblings. We don't learn it for the most part. This is what should be taught in school. Have to have disagreements without, you know, hating each other, as an example. How to talk more nicely to each other and to ourselves. Where's confidence taught in school? Confidence is only taught in school when it comes to achievements. Now, again, I'm not saying don't be proud of your achievements, but confidence should be there whether you achieve something or not. And I'm not talking about the participation trophies. That's not what I'm talking about. I do believe things have to be earned and not everything should be easy. But there should be that recognition of, hey, I did show up. The problem is, do you just show up or do you elevate your game afterwards? And I encourage people to elevate their game. Now, there might be like, I don't know how to elevate my game. Okay, let's work together. I will help you and I will keep you accountable. So if you guys can do these steps on your own, awesome. That's great. But if you need help, contact someone like myself. Shoot me a DM or whatever, and we can work together so I can keep you accountable. We'll put a plan in place that's specific to you and what your goals are of what you want to achieve, whether it's bodybuilding or something completely different. Okay. I help couples all the time with relationship issues. That's huge. That's what I've done over 20 years. I've been in private practice since 2000, but I was practicing for years before that. I worked for various EAP programs EAP stands for Employee Assistance Programs. I worked with hospitals. I worked in palliative care for people who were dying and worked with people who were, you know, the patients that were dying as well as the family members. I've dealt with trauma. Like, it's just, people were addicts. There were so many criminals. Like, it's just, I have this wealth of knowledge and I want to be able to help people. So if you guys know anyone, get the word out there, because a marketer, I am not. I'll tell you right now. So, there's a lot of channels out there and they give great information. What I'm bringing to the table is a little different because I want to help people with their mental game, not just sports, but in life. So there's not a lot of channels like mine out there. So I appreciate it's going to take a little longer to get my name out there and for people to know about me. But I would love to do more of these Q&As. And in one day, I'd love to do a Q&A in person with people. Not that I'm against this, but it's just to interact with people. I really like that. So whether it's one-on-one, whether it's a group, that's something I would really like to do. So let's see if there's anything else. When are you going to share progress pictures on your IG, or are you pulling a Dorian Yates into private? Okay, okay, so being a shadow. Okay, so progress pictures are usually something I just reserve for my coach. And then closer, actually probably either the day before the show or show day, I'll post pictures. So it's kind of like a Dorian Yates thing. Why do I do that? One is kind of a surprise thing. I'm not calling myself the shadow by any stretch of the imagination. I look nothing like Dorian Yates, but no, I just, for me, I want to show people, I'm not against people showing progress pictures, because I've seen, I find actually more males do it than females. Some females do it, of course, but I find more progress pictures being posted online on social media, like Instagram. So fair enough point, Mark, about that. But I see it more with the males. And I'm wondering if, because I know, and this is just from my experience, I can't speak for every female out there, there's usually body parts that take a long time to come in. And mine is my lower body, and it usually doesn't come in the way I need it until literally show day. Like, it's really weird. I never know how it's going to be. Every coach I've ever worked with knows what I'm talking about. And again, this also could be, I don't know if it's because I'm female, because I'm, in my 50s. It's a little different. Yeah, no, it's just, I'm not really big on showing pictures, except kind of like the final product, to see this is what you can accomplish too. But you know what, to your point, could that be an inspiration to people who can see, hey, you know what, this can change, as far as it's okay to post progress pictures. That's something I could consider at some point. Sure. I might actually, not put a little bee in my bonnet. The other piece is, if I had someone to take video, like say at the gym, I could probably post more of that stuff. It's just when I go to the gym, I'm very focused. I know there are people with tripods, and some of them are posting, pictures for their coaches, which is great because they need that. But you get these people who work out at the gym, and they do these pictures for Instagram, and they're just fitness influencers, or kids just kind of effing around the gym and trying to make themselves look good. And I'm just not about that. Like, I'm more about trying to give people the information and education. But you know what? I'm not against it. It's just, like I said, for me, I almost sound like a lead priest there, like I said. So it's more of when I'm at the gym, I go there to train. Get my stuff done, weights, cardio, whatever I need, posing, whatever I need to do, and I'm out of there. So I don't stick around to do pictures, because one, it's time consuming. Two, I'm really starving by the time my workouts are done. So that's probably why I don't post pictures. But if I had someone else to take the pictures versus me setting up my camera, trying to get my little clicker to go and take pictures, see, to me, that's going to be stressful. And it's just like, I like to eliminate as much stress as possible. So I just kind of do it at my home, show my coach, wait for their feedback, and just follow whatever they tell me to do. But yeah, if I had a videographer, I could probably do more progress stuff. So maybe one day, if I can monetize my channel, which I'll probably need a lot more subscribers for, I can hire someone to take some video of me at a gym. And I'll be in Vegas early November. So I'll be finishing my Olympia prep at the Dragon Slayer, and I'm really looking forward to that. So we've got the Mecca of the North, which for me is Pure Muscle and Fitness in Burlington. That's where, like I said, Antoine Valiant trains. That's where Quentin trains. There's a lot of good names actually at that gym. But when I'm in, for me, the Mecca of the South is Vegas, and it's the Dragon Slayer gym, Flex Lewis's gym. I love that gym. Now, there's a lot of gyms in Vegas. I have not checked out the other gyms, to be honest, so I can't comment. I just really like the vibe at the Dragon Slayer, but I will finish my prep there, and maybe if I might be able to get some video in. We'll see. But yeah, you know what? Definitely come back with me with that question later. You've given me some thought. I appreciate that, Mark. So that's cool. So do you guys have any kind of questions on anything, what we talked about so far, whether it's that not feeling good enough, whether it's talking about the Olympia, whether it's talking about, people hating people and the trolls or anything? We can talk about anything. If you have questions, like I said, I'm happy to address them. Just put them in the chat. Otherwise, we can wrap up for today until next week. So because today's a holiday, like I said, with the iron therapy, Dave and I did a pre-record with Antoine Valiant that is, if it's not out yet, it should be out later on today. I meant to check on YouTube. I forgot to before I came on live. But that will be coming out, if not already. And then on Fridays, every Friday, I release a video on the YouTube Mental Iron. So you get a separate video for that. So yeah, but I'll be back on Mental Iron doing this live Q&A next week, Monday, right after Iron Therapy. So usually Iron Therapy is at 2:00, unless Dave contacts me. I'm running late. But basically, as soon as Iron Therapy is done, I come on to Mental Iron. So again, that's usually around anywhere between 2:30 and 3:00, depending on how late Dave is running. Now, Dave has to have some surgery coming up. I forget the date, but it is coming up. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to have Iron Therapy that particular weekend, depending on his recovery. But I will, like I said, I will continue to do these lives every Monday. The only exception will be the day before the Amateur Olympia when I step on stage, because I'll be doing tanning and athlete meetings and stuff. So I may not have time to do that. But yeah, if there's ever an exception, I'll make a post. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'll do a post that I'm not able to do a particular Monday. But if I don't post about that, then assume every Monday I'll do this live Q&A. If you have any suggestions for future topics, whether it's on Iron Therapy or on Mental Iron, post them below. Give me a thumbs up, like it, tell people about it, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, do that little bell thing. Because I understand you can subscribe, but if you don't do the bell thing, it won't notify you. So apparently you have to click on the bell to be notified if anything new comes up. So, and for anyone who's watching this after the fact, and it's because you might be doing other things, then certainly, like I said, post your questions below, or let me know what actually resonated with you about the video. I always like to hear feedback, and I'm open to feedback. And again, if you don't agree with me, that's okay too. If you want to continue a conversation about something, we can absolutely do that. But yeah, so thank you guys. Kevin, great live show as always. Thank you, Kevin. You too. Can you touch on some questions to ask in finding a therapist like yourself to see if they are a match for you? Okay, so a therapist, finding it. Okay, absolutely. So first of all, it depends on the therapist. If you're looking for, let's say, a marriage therapist. So, if the issue, so keep in mind, if the issue is your bodybuilding, I have a client like this, that they want to go into bodybuilding, but their wife is not into it. I'm just using this as a particular example. So because this isn't just a relationship issue, it has to do with bodybuilding, it would be ideal to find someone more like myself who understands it. Because if you go to a regular therapist who knows nothing about bodybuilding, they're going to be like, well, don't do bodybuilding then. It's kind of like, well, if this is, if you have to make a choice, it's not quite that simple. Now, because I'm a bodybuilder and I do a ton of marriage counseling or relationship counseling, I understand both dynamics, and it's not something simple. There's a lot of things I need to delve into. Now, let's say it's not someone in bodybuilding, they just want to deal with a marriage counselor. Google, in your area, Google marriage therapist or relationship counselor. And then when you also do that, there's also something called Google reviews. So what you can do is actually check and see what the feedback is on a particular, and this isn't just therapists. You can do this with doctors, with dentists, with other people. Now, be careful. You're always going to have trolls, even on reviews. So let's say someone has 10 reviews. If 2 of them are negative, it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever they said was true. There are people that will post negative regardless of who they see. So you take it with a grain of salt. It's kind of like when you do Amazon reviews. You're always going to have Amazon reviews that are some are negative. You take it with a grain of salt, but you try to look at overall what's there. And then you'll have a better feel for the person when you do an initial consultation. So that's the first session. You may have to pay for it, but then you'll have a good idea of the style. If you like that style of counseling, if you felt comfortable, if this is couples counseling, whether your partner felt comfortable also with the session. So that's something to look into. So if we're talking about, so Mark, if finding a therapist, was there a particular area that you wanted help with? Because then I can kind of tailor in how to find a therapist in your particular area that you're looking into. Is it relationships or is it something else? Let me know. Okay, so while you're going to answer me, Mark, and let anyone else know if you have questions, please post them below or post them in the comments, like I said, if you're joining me after the fact. But yeah, finding a good therapist. Yeah, now keep in mind, it's also, you can find someone who has all the letters of the alphabet, meaning they could have PhDs or PsyDs or whatever beside their name. If you don't have good rapport with them, it's not going to work. You have to feel somewhat comfortable with your therapist. Just in general for an individual. Okay, so like I said, Mark, it kind of depends on the issue. If it's sports related, think of it like when you do blood work. If you do blood work, if you're an athlete, taking your blood work to a family doctor, you're not going to get the same response as, let's say, a sports doctor. Very different. So depending on what the issue is. Now, if you're just talking about general, let's say anxiety. Let's say this has nothing to do with any sport. It's just, let's say someone's saying whether they have poor self-esteem or they tend to feel anxious or maybe they're feeling down. And again, not sports related. Look at the Google reviews on those closest to you. Now, a lot of people will do also remote. Myself, because I'm back and forth from Canada and the States, I don't have an office right now because I'm back and forth. But I do phone sessions and I do what's called Google Meet. Zoom meetings are not, I know what they claim to be confidential. They're not. Okay, just so you guys know. Google Meet is much more secure. Now, I would love to move to the States and set up an office there one day. When I go to Vegas, I'll be looking at certain opportunities. So hopefully I'll eventually migrate there eventually. But for now, I'm going to be back and forth from Canada to the States. But to find a really good therapist, like I said, look at Google reviews, try the therapist out also ahead of time. Because not everyone has Google reviews. But try them out. And also, here's the thing. If you feel comfortable, let's say with certain people in your life, ask them if they know of a good therapist. You don't know if they're seeing a therapist because sometimes people don't talk about that stuff. It's very private. They don't want to share that they've seen a therapist. You never know. Or they might say, hey, I haven't seen a therapist, but, my buddy did. I can, they seem to like their therapist. I can get the name for you. Sometimes referral is good too. Someone that you can trust and try out. But oftentimes you don't know they're a good therapist until you try them out. But the key thing, guys, is you don't want a therapist who just sits there, nods their head, and gives you nothing back. They need to do that in the beginning just to hear because they don't know your story. But I'm really big on strategies. I usually don't end a first session without giving them a piece of homework, giving them a strategy of something to work on before a next session. So, and if you don't, here's the thing. therapists should be open to feedback. So if something's not working, let them know. Let them know. And if you're not getting, if they become very defensive, and I've heard this story, I've heard different stories about therapists. And if they're being, they're saying, well, you should listen to me because I'm the professional. And, depending on how the context and everything, that may not be the right for you. Think of it like a coach. A lot of people seek different kinds of coaches. Someone like me love their coach. You may not love their coach because of their style. So it's kind of trial and error, Mark, but obviously, it's important to have some type of credentials. You don't want something out of high school. You want something with some type of credentials. I like I said, look at Google reviews. Referral can always be helpful. But, it's important to have that connection. Yes, they have to be educated for sure, but you need to have that connection. They might have a style. My style may not work for everybody. I can be very direct. If someone says, what do I need to do? I'll tell them. See, a lot of times people will say, a lot of therapists will say, well, what do you think? Well, by that time, you've already told me what I thought. So then I tell you what I think and why I think this way. But I'll say, here's some options. I'll respect your choice. We'll do that. But, and I'll outline a bunch of stuff. So I'm really big on giving people what we call informed choices, which means don't make a choice without making sure we've looked at everything. So that's just my style. But again, find someone that's like your style, what you're looking for. But sometimes it is trial and error. So I hope that helped. So I think that's it for now. I don't see any other questions, but like I said, post them below. One other thing, guys. Someone mentioned sleep to me, and I was given these products to try, and I'm really impressed. So the company is called Neutrology. So if you're having trouble sleeping, I don't know if you guys can see this. Neutrology, turmeric. I don't know if you can see this. Turmeric. Okay, so with this, it can help reduce inflammation. It's powerful antioxidant. It boosts the immune system. Who doesn't want that? Also for sleeping. Magnesium. Again, this is Neutrology. It's backwards, but okay. Magnesium. What does magnesium do? Okay. Well, it increases the muscle function. We all need that. Promotes bone health and supports your metabolism and balances electrolytes. Definitely good. And don't forget this little sucker, ashwagandha. Again, Neutrology. If you guys can see this, it's great for sleeping. Reduces stress and anxiety. Okay, most people have stress and anxiety. Highly, highly recommend this. Supports the immune system, improves your brain function. People in prep, this is great. This is great. Now, Neutrology, where do you buy this? Amazon, people, Amazon. Go to Amazon. Go to Amazon. Check this out. I really like these products. I take them. So it's the turmeric. You guys can see this. Turmeric, the magnesium, the blue. Magnesium. And the ashwagandha. Those three are what I take at nighttime. I actually take the turmeric and the magnesium also another time of the day. But those three are what I take at night. And it really did help. It really does help. I'm really impressed. And again, I'm in prep, so remember I'm hungry all the time. But it helps. And I have more energy when I wake up in the morning, which is great because the first thing I do is fasted cardio. So that helps when I do my fasted cardio. So hope that helps. If you guys do end up trying these products, these Neutrology products, like I said, these are really cool. I really like them. Amazon. Let me turn it. Hello. These three. Powerful three. You guys tried these? Let me know what your experiences are. I tried these. I really, really like this combination. Helps me sleep, relax, helps boost my immune system, protects my muscle. Again, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm in prep. This is awesome for me. Now, you don't have to be a bodybuilder to benefit from this as well. Like I said, with the stress and anxiety, people can have stress and anxiety just from daily life. It doesn't have to be just for athletes. So hopefully, like I said, if you guys try it, let me know. Let me know what your experiences of those products are. I'd love to hear your feedback. Mine was positive. I want to know if yours is positive too. I wish you guys a great rest of your Labor Day weekend, and I'll see you next Monday. Remember to keep your mental game on. Take care, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye for now.